Okay, so good afternoon. I am Anto Budiojo. Welcome to Monday Live, something we do every Monday at 3 p.m., except last week. So just a reminder, profiles are on Monday Live, and the views expressed here are personal, not of any company or organization. And you know how to use the tools by now. And this deck is on mondaylive.org. Our theme for June is what you see there: smart building enablers. We're hopefully going to have a month-long conversation about what we should be focused on in terms of issues that will actually enable smart buildings to happen at a better scale. And our agenda today is our normal news and trend, and we really want to focus on the technology and business enablers as part of that smart building enablers for this month. And before that, Ken has a few words to say about June's issue. Ken, over to you.
Thanks, Anto. Yeah, we're having a lot of fun with our Pushing Digital Dinosaurs, which of course I am one of the head dinosaurs in this process, and we all need to get re-educated as to what's happening. We broke out a cluster of fun articles addressing some of the issues that are going on and some of the changes. There seems to be certainly a age divide, as Roger was mentioning earlier. Things are tending to divide by age as much as anything. So the dinosaur is maybe a good analogy. One of the lead articles is what killed the dinosaurs, the AI age, artificial intelligence, and is it overhyped? Yeah, we don't think so. It's basically that designs now have to include how we're going to use artificial intelligence. And Mark has written us a great article on Don't Be a Data Dinosaur. And he talks about we're not even using all the technologies that we have now and that we have to reorganize that. Another one I dug out is this is one I wrote back 2017, so that's a few years ago. And we need to stream our dinosaur dust into our new self-learning online environments. I think one of the problems we have as an industry is we just kind of dump all of this stuff, and we all look wisely at each other and say, that's going to cause them problems, but we don't really work hard at trying to take that the dinosaur dump and basically turn it into useful information, basically into mini moments that the new workforce can do. I think that's a task I'd like to sort of push back to all of us. That's about all I have to say.
Great, thank you, Ken. Next up, Roger, what's going on over there in the European Commission?
Yeah, no, it's the European Commission who actually, it's really an article that follows up with loads of others you've seen elsewhere, where the bigger corporations are considering, or the European Commission is going to plans to close half its office buildings across Brussels, but to allow working at home. It could be argued that European Commission people don't work much anyway, but they're considering closing half the buildings, which is mainly around Brussels. But I thought the great anecdote for that was the opposite, was the small business owners scoring dream spots, and this was like a restaurant that's opening in the heart of Manhattan, where big retails and other restaurants have closed. They're managing to open their smaller enterprises in places that have been vacated. So they're really, because the rents are down about 60% in Manhattan and places, they're able to actually get some fantastic locations. This one was near the 30 Rock, Tina Fey's sitcom place. So there are people coming, trying to actually grab some of this stuff, and good to see some smaller guys sort of jumping in where big guys have run out.
I just to emphasize that, Roger, I heard several of those anecdotal cases in California as well just recently. People, just smaller companies picking up some prime spots that they would never have thought of before. Yeah. It seems like an opportunity for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
One on this same subject that I found out over the weekend in Richmond, Virginia, there's a old antiquated mall called Regency. And I think John and Steve, you guys probably know of it. Anyway, I was driving around and come to find out that a film studio, and TV studio took over half of the vacant space and created sets for The Walking Dead, which is filmed in Richmond. So I thought that was a completely whole new approach to existing facilities and, taking advantage of that.
Probably a
So
good
they took some
location
dead
for the
space to film the dead people. That's
That's
really.
what I was gonna say, yeah.
Good
I
one.
don't think the clientele's going to look any different, Mark.
They do comedy too, if you guys are interested. No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
All right, so moving on. Moving on, John.
Yeah. This first topic, I think, is a trend that we're going to be hearing more and more of. The idea that net zero is a dead topic because of the way it can be evaluated. There's a lot of writing happening on it, and what I see is momentum that's no longer something that companies are going to get much benefit from claiming. And the idea of net zero is on the balance of a year, we generated as much electricity as we used. And because part of the problem is how they can do it. And I can relate a story from a number of years ago, talking to a customer and, talking about efficiency and sustainability. And they say, oh, we met all our sustainability goals, and they had a big portfolio. I'm like, wow, I guess you don't need me, right? How did you do that? We bought offsets. So did you improve, the performance of your buildings? No. Did you reduce your energy consumption? No. So they're still running the way they've always been. Yeah, but we hit our goals. And what's happening is society, Wall Street, all of that is catching on to this, that this is not going to help climate change. It's just, wallpaper and, for, organizations, companies, and it's going away. It's out of fad. So anyways, that's one. And the other is, hey, in-person real estate conferences are making a comeback, right? So I thought that was interesting as we're all watching what's going to happen with the conferences that, I think everybody on this call has been, very involved in going to, has been a key part of how we do business.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, John. Anno.
Three items. One I shamelessly just stole from Anto that he had sent earlier in the week. And if you haven't had a chance to have a look at it, kind of interesting. It's an hour long, there's some rambly points in it, but there's a whole bunch of interesting people on this White House roundtable that was held. I think it was last week, right, Anto, or something?
It's actually the week before.
Week before, yeah. It's very interesting. Takes a bit of just sitting in the background listening to, but some key points that made, which does show a lot of increased focus by the White House and the initiatives that they're working on. See how much of this actually flows down in the infrastructure bill, which would be the good thing. If you haven't seen it too, Memori put out there's a seminar coming up in a week, I think. June the 14th, called Smart Score, classification of smart buildings. Looks actually quite interesting and compelling. So if you get a chance, you might want to have a look at that. And it's actually part of, again, there's a whole YouTube channel called the Smart Building Series. If you haven't subscribed to that, that's actually another interesting channel to subscribe to. There's some really interesting YouTube interviews and stories that go on that particular series. Quite compelling.
Thank you. Over to Mark.
So we've talked a little bit about ESG, environmental social governance, and as this continues, and I think we've all seen, there's lots of money flowing there for sure. And this caught my interest. Salesforce adds climate obligations to all supplier contracts. So I'm curious is this going to be the new wave for a while, especially for large companies, large tech companies like Salesforce and Facebook and so forth and so on, that they are going to make their suppliers adhere to climate rules and regulations of some kind. So something to keep our eyes on to see if this kind of gets stickiness over the next 3 to 6 months.
It's interesting to me that a few of the news that we've been talking about are all kind of related to each other as we're sort of going through the climate sort of issues. It's easy to criticize something like net zero because of what we just said, but maybe that's just part of the process that we're going through. Maybe we have.
Yeah, and that's what I think. David just said, net zero is not going away. I don't think that's the point. It's right. It's how does society view things, and the view is changing on it. It's still of value, but the view is changing that that's not enough. So don't plaster that on your website. You have to do better, right? That just like, hey, there are still businesses that accept faxes. If that's the only thing they accept, they're probably not with the times, right? So,
by the way, what's your fax number? I came across actually that one there. I came across a couple of pieces. They were both in VentureBeat actually yesterday. One about Microsoft ramping up their construction-related digital twin for construction and real estate, and the other one is basically Autodesk doing something very similar, announcing a new platform called Tandem. But what I thought was interesting is the Guidehouse Insight predicting that the amount of square footage of buildings, I'm assuming this is in the world, it's going to go from 166 billion to 196 billion. So that's 20% over 10 years, which is pretty good. I'm assuming this is global, which kind of makes sense because a lot of that is presumably in developing areas. And Autodesk is obviously trying to move from its current position to something that's more operational. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or comments on that. I thought that was interesting both.
Did the Microsoft digital twins thing, do you know if that had anything to do or connected with the Willow guys out of Australia? Or was it a separate initiative?
I did not see Willow mentioned in this piece, but I could be wrong. It was mentioning things like real estate core and some of the other DTDL and other things that they've been doing, and the stuff they're doing in the energy space with Grid. All right, so moving on. So we're going to kick this conversation off. I'm going to put up a poll, and I'm going to make it so the panelists can vote as well.
Oh, good. I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I can do that now. So here's really the question. What do you think is the more critical enabler? Right. So we're really talking about enablers, not the fact that it's just there. It's important between technology and business. So having done that, I actually don't know how I can take the poll myself. So I'll just let it go for a few more moments and then we can go.
Can I do a mail-in ballot as well?
No.
Axel,
Not on Sundays.
Okay, so I think we've been open for a minute. I think I'm going to close it. I think everybody's pretty much done. So the results, share the results here. Are you seeing this?
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Business wins it, although both in equal amounts is close second. I'd be intrigued to know what something else is.
Yeah.
That's me, for sure. I'd like to know who else.
Yeah, so
And
whoever
Will
posted
represent
something-
10%.
Yeah, so whoever posted something else, could you post a comment in chat? And we can touch that.
I'll just say it. I posted something else and I believe you could argue any of these. I still say how we view it is going to get in the way. So our own minds. I know the cynics on the call will attack me on that, but how we view it, how we take it to market, how we contextualize this can get in the way.
Okay.
That's it.
I voted business, but I actually think that regulatory would have been an interesting other that I contemplated.
Okay. Anybody else on the panel that have sort of interesting views on this, and then we can move on. And
So
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, my question, do the difference between business and technology, it's 10%. Does that surprise anyone on the call? Did you expect it to go the other way? I'm not surprised.
I voted for business.
I said both. I don't know if it's exactly equal amounts, but can't have one without the other.
I guess my problem with the business one depends on your perspective of business, right? If business means there's a financial model, then it makes sense, or does business mean the delivery mechanisms and everything else behind it?
Or is it I have issues, I have problems in my business problems, and I need those solved? And technology obviously is an enabler to solve that.
yeah, that's interesting. I think when we were discussing this, thinking about what to make the topic, I certainly was talking about it from us, the industry, and the business models and the business mechanisms compared to the technology issues of our industry.
Yeah, so I went with business because to me, the biggest challenge right now, we've got tons of technology. We can solve just about anything. But unfortunately, the C-suite doesn't recognize the importance of smart buildings sufficiently. There are obviously exceptions, but overall in the market, we don't get on the radar of the C-suite sufficiently to make a smart building something they aspire to have, right? You know, that to me is a fundamental problem. And how do we solve that problem?
Yeah, I'm coming from the same place as Steve, really, where I'm saying I think we got enough technology to make it happen. I think we got some roadblocks in the business side, the supply chain and things like that are the things that are getting in the way, and they've got to become the enabler to make it happen. There's plenty of technology to make this happen now.
Right.
So that's where I disagree, and I voted technology because I know there's a lot of technology, but I don't think any of it works as cheaply or as easily, as efficiently as it should. I think we are still climbing big hills and deploying what we're trying to deploy. I think we've got some really good technology up at the high end, but trying to make that work and deploy cost effectively with people and organizations, I don't think exists. I don't think we've cracked that nut.
But is that fundamentally a problem with those technologies, or how the businesses are implementing and trying to?
I think it's a fundamental problem of our industry. It's complicated. It's complicated, and we've had this discussion in the past, right? It's very complicated to deploy what we try to deploy. I mean, we've had the discussion about the type of person that you need, you know, from understanding an air handling unit and a VAV and how all that works, all the way up to IT, cybersecurity, data, tagging, analytics. It's a whole breadth of stuff that is just very complicated, and I think we've not solved the problem in my mind.
I
I think
concur
we've
with
made it
that.
worse.
I concur with that. And also the way I see it too is the technology in the business. Basically, each one of our businesses is represented by a technology.
Yeah.
And technology is the core. The business is what we do, and what we're all fighting for on the screen is to basically, don't change my technology, because if you change my technology, you're gonna change my business model. And I think that's exactly what's going on, and that's sort of the dinosauriums that I'm starting to tip over, is that, is what you're defending your technology, or are you defending a better way of doing it? And I think what's happening is better ways of doing it are falling out of the sky. And the trouble is we're not part of those technologies, and that's hurting our business.
Yeah, we just put up the umbrella and reject them.
That's right.
That then goes to Bill's sort of perspective, is how we're thinking about these issues.
I had an interesting conversation with an analyst here. It actually started last week and continued into today. And it was a bit of a light bulb moment for me, in that the rest of the world outside of our industry and you know, the pure technologists in us really see this differently. So in this situation, the comment that really brought it home was, the guy said, look, I was arguing over how much energy they're saving, how much money they're saving, and you know, you have to account for weather and some things like that. And he said, bottom line is, if the P&L doesn't improve, nobody is going to think this thing works, regardless of what the weather does, right? Nobody got, and my answer was, well, but imagine how much you would have spent if you didn't have the system in place. And his reply was, nobody got a bonus for cost avoidance. So, and this is somebody who should really know and understand and is on our side of this, right? They're not arguing against us. And it just made me realize that there are so many people in the world that just don't see the world. They're not motivated the right way financially. It's not their money. They're not getting a bonus. They're, whatever the motivation or motivator is, it's not happening across the board to people we're
Those are
selling.
the type of topics of why I selected business. I was thinking those types of topics, purchasing things that Jim has talked about, the financial incentive problem, the split incentives in buildings. That's what I interpreted the business checkbox to be.
Same. Kind of saddening though to have that discussion.
So
So the question would be then, if you go back to my point about we haven't solved, let's make the assumption that the technology costs nothing, right? To install and make it work and do all these savings. To your point, Tracy, would someone still move ahead and try and do something even though it costs them nothing?
My data analysis suggests that they would not,
Right.
that it's not about money at all.
I'm with Jim.
We can find lots of money. We've proven over the last 10 to 20 years that this business is not about, it's not just the not saving, you know, the not making, and the no bonus for saving is very true. But even when the dollars get to be large, people don't care because they're not incented to care because it's not their money.
Mhm. Right.
So even if it costs nothing, that would still not do anything.
Correct.
Isn't nothing,
Less.
you know, I mean, so a 3-month payback isn't good enough for you, Anna? Will 2 months make it? One, what is it, a week? A week and a, what's your number? My number is, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming
You know,
from, Ron.
What's nothing mean, you know? It's financially compelling already to do these things, and it's not happening to the scale we want because of the things Jim has mentioned. Also, I'd bring Bill Bain's comment back here, which is it's a psychological mindset of, is this stuff important enough for me in whatever role I have with the company to push, to say something, to convey that I think it's important, right? The whole incentive beyond money.
Yeah, so from a business perspective, if the C-suite thought that, forget the cost for a second, but if the C-suite thought that I want to have as little energy consumption as possible, I want to drive what I would call true net zero. You know, I don't want no more energy than I absolutely have to. That I want my building to be as healthy as possible, right? and I want data accessible to anybody who needs it. Those three things.
But why?
If the C-suite managed to those three metrics, it would revolutionize our industry.
It would, but Steve, the problem with the C-suite is that we can save 20% of 1% of their problem.
I didn't say, I forget about the dollars. Did I say dollars? I didn't say dollars. I said energy consumption. So if this whole climate change thing drives people to want to reduce the amount of energy they consume because they view it as a pollutant, and then they're worried about the health of their employees, and they're worried about the operational efficiency, which can be driven by access to data. Those are three things that I don't see C-suite caring at all about today in any meaningful way.
And this is why we've talked about potentially the need for regulation, which is how in Europe and other places they handle this kind of problem, where there's a common good, and the incentives for the local at a local level point in other directions.
Yeah.
They create laws.
So
Yeah, APEC's the same, Jim. I just read a paper from we're in discussions with a fairly large government organization in Singapore who they just built a true net zero one. It's been in operation for 4 years now, a net zero building. And and they did a research paper on it, and they asked me to comment on the thing. It's phenomenal, right, and what they've done, and they're driving it the next step. They want to go positive, right? They want to do more generation than usage and stuff. And this has been driven by an organization that sets construction standards, and they did it to their own building and stuff.
So group, if to your point, Steve, is if you take those 3 points, those points are not part of the dialogue, not part of the discussion, not part of the business strategy.
Right.
So if you, to me, the sea change is getting things like this, things like we all do, to become part of the strategy, and then it becomes a business-driven technology.
Right.
But the point is that's not something that we, as an industry, can do. We can't.
Why not?
Because let me turn it into a question. Is it a question of education? Because I'm not sure it is. Because it's a mindset. It's trying to understand this ROI while at the same time not really understanding it because it looks complicated and nobody's made it simpler. So
Yeah, if you're a system integrator, let's say you're a system integrator, you got no business, but and you could live anywhere, or you're some person in this vertical, you're gonna go to those states that have, to Jim's point, high regulation. If you map out our sales, it's all directly correlated to regulation and where we've got to do this. So you're going to California, New York, something like that. So,
I mean, if you've ever been in the fire alarm industry, they have a saying, which is that no one ever bought a fire alarm because they wanted one. They bought it because it was the law,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
And that's their sales model.
Was
Right.
it the law, or it was the law, and how about risk?
Right.
insurance.
Well, I mean, that's one thing that we've talked about in this forum, and we could talk about again. And I certainly have tried to do, which is to approach the insurance industry and sell risk mitigation. There's a lot of smoke there, but hasn't seemed to have caught fire just yet. And I think it might just be an attempt frequency and the timing thing so far with insurance.
So if I'm trying to put my head in the mind of the C-suite and comparing OT and building systems and IT, I would argue that they are both complicated. Maybe not in a different ways, because there's a lot of physics in OT, but there's a lot of different sort of issues in IT. I'm just trying in my head to sort of remove Anno's defense of it's complicated, because I think we're not the only one with a complicated problem, right? If you ever open up an iPhone or seen a picture of what's inside of an iPhone or an Android phone, they are incredibly complicated. With many,
Yeah, but there are tens of thousands of people who can do that, who can engineer those things. We've
okay.
got like 5.
Well, that's
Well, they're standardized, right? They're not bespoke
Yeah.
like buildings. I think that gets at a big part of it, is that the variation makes it hard to gain the financial benefits of, volume or, repetitiveness like you have in manufacturing, right? And I think here we are with, we've seen 30, 40 years of controls moving into or on the equipment, on the air handler. But it still hasn't changed dramatically the end complexity of implementing an automated or even smart building at the end, right? Okay, great. The controls came on the VAV boxes instead of people getting up on ladders and screwing them on. But the building's still a complicated problem to program, commission, and turn over, right? So.
no other thoughts on that front of things, side of things.
I think maybe what's happening is the IT industry is seeing the opportunity to take our industry and shove it into their mass production iPhone approach, Android phone approach. So, and I think it's working. There's the idea of a touchless, because driven by COVID, the idea of a touchless environment, or using a device you've already touched, such as your phone, to interface with everything, the mobile crazes and stuff that are starting to come with all of the new IT projects are counter to our thinking, but it does somewhat look simpler. Anno, as Anno points out, it's a complex device, but in what it does is it takes a whole bunch of very complex things and makes them somehow so we can understand them. So I think that whole revolution that's going on is a very different in our business. A lot of
What about peer pressure? In other words, if I'm a property owner or whatever, and I've got, hundreds of buildings, and, I need to get up, I need to embrace this because, one, my competition is, two, is that's what everybody is talking about. Occupants in buildings, tenants are talking about it. You're reading it in the news, whatever. Is peer pressure enough? Or is that something that, can help the cause, I guess?
I think the other one that's driving it is physical security. Is quite a few of the new buildings. The method you get into the building is through your phone, and then once you're in there, you basically are into an app or that basically is tracking your location, and we know how close you are to people, and all of that whole side of it that is becoming the whole mobile experience is becoming as significant as the temperature experience that we've provided over the years.
See, I'm not talking about the mobile experience per se. I'm talking about, if you go back to like what Steve said, those three things, if we're using that as a example, obviously there's more. It's the whole concept as a whole. If you choose to use the mobile technology approach, so be it. If you choose to use another technology approach that may be not mobile, so be it. But the technology exists.
I want to
So
follow up
I
on that.
think
Mark.
you're,
So-
I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
All right, just a quick one, because somebody said something in passing and I wanted to pick up on, the whole touchless, right? I'm sure there were people out there trying to sell touchless door technologies and other things 2 years ago, right? And struggling to hit their quarterly numbers, right? Hey, it's better. You don't have to touch it. Yeah. What changed? Societal expectations. I don't want to touch anything anymore, right? That's what we need to have happen. And that's what I was getting to earlier. Maybe didn't get the point across, is we need, and I think Bill was on this too, we need the mindset to change that this is important. And maybe it'll save me money, but it's still important even if it doesn't. Or maybe it'll save me money fast enough, but it's
That was
still
my
important.
point, John, is if energy is rated, success is rated by how little I consume versus how much I spend. If that's the metric, how little can I spend, how little can I consume rather, on a net by net basis to do all the things I want to do in my building.
And I think I agree with all of this. The key is who is the benchmarking police on that? And, heretofore, it has been the 100 greenwashing standards that we now see listed for rating different buildings.
Right.
But this is a place where, through government policy right now, an egalitarian series of rules could be set, through research in the national lab, something we can build consensus on to actually benchmark what those things are, rather than letting it devolve into greenwashing.
So
I agree, Jay.
does that include sort of mechanisms to standardize data and information kind of stuff, as well as
I would say,
financial?
it's based on actually standardizing the measurement and verification, right? So you don't want to say, hey, one guy, you want people to compete, to do a better job with their analytics and their data processing. So you have to establish a set of criteria which creates a race to the top rather than a race to the bottom, right? So the low competitive bid world that we live in now is a race to the bottom. You want to make the first cost cheaper and cheaper until there's no value left. Instead, because we have the analytics now, we can reframe the story to compete on how good a job we're doing of saving energy and money and carbon and all these other things. And we can quantify it because we have the data now, if the data regimes are set up in an equitable way.
So if the challenge is that, the stuff that we do doesn't affect the core business, like Ken was saying about IT, if something goes wrong with our IT, suddenly the finance systems don't work, it affects what they do day to day. Most of what we do doesn't. Yes, sure, if they have a cybersecurity issue, it does, and a few other things, but if their staff get agitated, that comes closer to home. And the only other way, as you were talking about, was legislation. One of the things, for instance, that we don't have as a group here is I do know that all the bigger companies, for instance, have lobbyists. The Siemens, the Honeywell, the Johnson Controls have people who do lobby. And if there's a legislation that we think would help, even if it's a small one, like every building has to have a building automation system down to X amount of square feet, which has been introduced incidentally here in the UK. Then maybe we got to get those guys involved as well to actually lobby, in the US.
I want to kind of somewhat related to that, Roger. David Katz just posted something good in the chat about GRESB, and so I got a question for everybody on the panel, and everybody, the attendees, can chime in too. How often, if ever, do you encounter customers who, in your conversation, sales process, they say, one of my goals is GRESB rating. How are you going to help me? Is the number greater than 0 for anybody? Anto, did we lose the audio?
No, you're coming across loud and clear.
I've heard it 0 times, John. I'll be upfront.
And I know of it, and I've read about it, but again, this is the whole, what are the expectations of, how come more people, more building owners and operators don't want that and aren't demanding how we help them get
Do they know about it, John?
I
Curious.
don't
I don't
know.
know. I don't know either. I just a question.
Okay, David says many in Canada. Well, I guess we travel in different circles.
Yeah.
David, because our panel hasn't been hit a lot by it. So
Well, we're not in Canada, mostly.
not most of us.
So intrigued to dig into that sort of concept of a race to the top. What does that look like? I'm wondering if we can point to another new technology or something that's new that we've seen in the past years that is actually a race to the top.
Well, hold on, brother. See, I love the concept of race to the top, but there you go again, looking for the next shiny new thing.
I don't think you're talking technology. You're just talking about what our goals are. We want to run the best building because we believe in it.
That race to the top I like.
Yeah, that's what.
What's
that's
the
what-
outcome look like? Not what's the shiny new
Not-
thing that's
not
gonna
the
get us
how.
there.
Not the how, the what.
Yeah.
The what and why and the
What,
benefit.
what and why, right?
Yeah, that was.
I think it's quite simple. I think you just have people compete around a set of criteria. And you make sure that that criteria causes the things that you want, right?
Right, right.
Regardless of what you pay or what your vendor bought or how they got there, through hard data, through meters or calculations or what have you, how do we get the damn numbers down? I think that's it. You just establish rigorous benchmarks that can't be gamed and are not ethereal greenwashing, and then you let it rip.
So let me throw out a scenario. So you build a new building and the MEP says it's going to use X megawatts of power per year. Okay. Now the bidders come in and say, I can beat that model by 5% or by 10%, or they literally bid on how much they can reduce that by in order to win the contract. What do you think of something like that?
I think it's a good start.
But
But to
isn't
me,
it mostly on the operation of the
Yeah, that's
building?
To go.
That's still thinking project capex front
No,
end.
no, it has to, obviously, it has to go beyond CapEx because you have to maintain that amount of spend or consumption rather.
And I submit a proposal not to build the building.
There you go.
That's the greatest saving.
Your
So we're
office
Shut
is
them
a
down
tent.
like the EU Commission's gonna.
So your office is a tent.
Actually, I just put up, looks like your DOE is doing some neat stuff there. Is anybody using any of that, or can you comment on that? I put the link.
Yeah,
I
well, they've done a
follow
lot
Meta building
to help
stuff.
promote the value of data analytics, energy management, information services with a 3-year program they went that pulled in building owners and had them submit their projects, and it created a great validated proof of what data can do and analytics can do and the intelligent buildings can do. So that they've been very helpful with that. That program is ending, by the way, after I think it was 3 years, might have been 4.
Although it looks like it's dusted off for decarbonization. If that's what I'm interpreting, is that what you're interpreting or not?
Is that the same one that's from Energy Star with the building rating?
No, that's totally different. And the only thing it's ending isn't the Better Buildings program, but their EMIS challenge that was going on for 3
Yeah.
or 4 years. So
I was gonna say, because that building rating program, I think has a lot of potential because it's got a continuous improvement component to it. So in order to keep your good score, you gotta kind of keep getting better and
Yeah.
better in your cohort. So,
But this is part of the whole business problem, right? We within our group, there's all these initiatives and programs out there, and we've talked about 4 or 5 already in the last half an hour. We're kind of a little confused at some of the programs. Imagine the poor building owners, to John's
Yeah.
point. I mean, forget Gresby, any one of them that they're talking about, they don't even know where to start, right? Who's out there advising these guys to say, look, you need to be doing this one or this one or this initiative. They're overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed with what needs to be done. What programs are available. How do you line up? There's no way the building owners can do their own research in that space. They don't have the time.
you know what just popped in my head when you were saying all that, is credit score. Can you imagine if there are this many variations of credit
Yeah,
score that people were
perfect
looking at?
example.
Yeah,
Just 3.
yeah, and that's
good.
bad enough.
Yeah.
And if you dig into it, they each have about 8 or 10 subcategories or variations within them, but at
And if
least
you get-
it's an accepted industry practice that everybody is looking at one of or more of those.
Yeah, and then you look at the 3 different credit scores and you get them, the 3 different numbers. If you're
Yeah.
using the same criteria, why the hell aren't they exactly alike?
But that's okay. That's sort of innovation.
Not for
and-
me.
Well, then you can take the average.
Yeah, and a lot of them do. They'll take
Yeah.
best 2 out of 3 or the top one and the low one and
Yeah.
average it or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
But what
So
did we say on that list that we started to compile? 24, 25, just call them,
Yeah.
I don't, ratings, I don't
Ratings,
know,
yeah.
whatever we
Mhm.
call them.
Yeah.
Assessments.
That was my point last week or the other
Yeah.
week, right? There was so many of them.
Yeah.
I mean, how does a poor building owner track these things?
So the key word is simplify somehow, right? And
Yeah.
that seems to be actually applicable to us as it is to our ultimate customers.
Well, and once you get away from the big sophisticated managers or owners, then it really gets lost in the weeds. Once you get into the SMB market,
Mhm.
nobody understands, you know, they might get lead, you know, and understand what that means a little bit, but it doesn't go much beyond that. And so that means it is too complicated or too abstract for them to really relate to.
Yeah, and David just posted a really interesting comment. You know, green is different from energy, is different from smart, but the problem is, you know, the building owner is trying to roll them all together. Well, if I have a smart building, therefore, am I green or am I saving energy? If I'm doing energy, am I smart?
And they didn't care about any of this to begin with, so why
Yeah.
should I care?
What should I care? Just to try and make a difference of understanding it.
I think this ties in a little bit to lead and stuff I've heard from people in the market, right? I mean, you can gain a lot of points in lead by doing green stuff, right? The bike racks, the materials, et cetera, and still have an incredibly poorly performing building as far as
Right.
energy performance, right?
If they're located near a bus stop, you get points, right? So
Yeah, things like that. And that's all good. But the problem is they all get conflated together and people think, oh, I have an efficient building. No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You pick good textiles, you know, great.
Yeah,
That's a good
and-
thing, you
you
know?
kept your materials inside and dry during construction, right?
Yeah.
And minimized outgassing and stuff, so.
Again,
don't
it's
wanna give
good.
away
It's
a-
totally
give-
different.
Just to give away a sales secret, we look for LEED Platinum buildings. They're guaranteed to be screwed up.
Jim, I happen to agree. We have a partner of ours, and there's this one guy, and the thing that turns him on the most is showing LEED Platinum buildings. I mean, this guy gets up for this in the morning. Mission in life is showing platinum buildings how bad they are. He just lives for it.
Right.
But you know, Jim, I think your point about regulation might be, in fact, the way that we can force this. You know, if you think about a building that has a certain energy consumption rating, like, you know, the forecast, how much it does, and if they were to have to report those numbers to the local tax authority, and if they went over it, they got taxed on their amount of consumption over, that would start to take notice.
Well,
Good.
isn't that
Let's
something?
look at how that's coming out now. There actually is legislation
Yeah.
going in, but it's going in city by city.
Mhm.
And the next worst thing is state by state. And, you know, to the people who said, oh, well, there are 24 different ratings and, you know, X other things. Now let's try, you know, 50 sets of rules.
Right.
This is why some good national public policy to, you know, have the labs put together a rational benchmark, which could be, maybe the legislation is still state by state or local, but at least people are working out of a box so that the credit scores are all the same, right?
You know, where they are doing that, I think in Jim, it's in your neck of the woods for cannabis growing facilities. If you want to get licensed in Massachusetts, they give you a maximum energy
They
density
do.
per square foot. That's it. You can't operate over that. I don't know what the penalties are. I don't know. Maybe they shut the breaker off in the plants die or something. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Make
And
you
aren't they
smoke your
doing-
inventory?
Aren't they doing this in New York and Philadelphia? Like in New York, the local 97, if you have a building, whatever it is, I think it's 25,000 square feet or larger by 2025 or whatever it is, that you have to use X amount of energy, or you can only use X amount of energy. If you are over that, you are fined.
That sounds like a California rule.
mean,
Do
that's-
you guys know if there's anyone out there who does advise building owners on the different programs, initiatives independently? I mean, is there such an organization, people, consultants? I've not heard of any of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody doing it, but has it made it to the top of the list? I'm sure there are people doing it.
But
There
some-
are, but I think what's interesting is that hasn't even developed as a practice. The consulting engineering community in our business has effectively abdicated their responsibility to the owner in all these things and
Mhm.
views themselves as just part of the construction process. So there isn't enough ongoing piece. But having been involved in this for a long time, I haven't seen enough demand for people that care enough to pay such a person
Yeah,
for the most
yeah.
part. So if you look on the security side, Steve's business is basically sailing in that direction, right, Steve?
So you think, Jim, is that I agree with you 100%. There's the abdication of the consultants over the last 5, 10 plus years, right, from this whole space, and smart and analytics, the whole thing. Do you think part of that reason is they themselves didn't see anybody saw value in it, and they pulled themselves out of it? Was it a natural attrition?
I've puzzled until my puzzler's sore about that one, and I don't have the answer. I mean,
Fair
it's
enough.
to me, it's
Yeah, I
crazy
don't think it's
that's
attrition.
not it.
Sorry. I don't think it's attrition. I think there wasn't enough demand for them to invest in setting up a team, training people for that. I've met with a number of them, and I'm actually quite surprised that, they're in so many other advanced areas of engineering and consulting for people building sophisticated buildings and data. How do you spell that?
Right.
What you don't have in the US there is something that we've got here. It did start many years ago, but all the controls companies and system integrators and everything form one body, a building controls industry association. And they now quite regularly get referenced, as well as there's a push and a pull where, it's known, hey, I need to, the controls industry to pass a comment on what we should do here, and government or other bodies will actually refer to it as well as it pushing. But it did need all the controls companies to sign up, which they did. All the 50 of the biggest system integrators are members. There's people who are associated with the BAS industry, and it kind of is now a reference point where people are trying to work together to influence as well as being referred to as a body that represents the building automation industry. And I think it kind of has really helped them here in the UK force through some of the things, like I said earlier, where it's now legislation that says you've got to have a building automation system if you're above X amount of square feet.
So we need to get organized, is basically what you're saying.
So partly our own industry, yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's a smaller scale here, but there's no such body in the US from memory.
Right.
The other thing is
all
you-
the controls companies. You need Siemens, Schneider, Johnson, Honeywell. And they only get one vote because they can't outvote. A system integrator is also a member. Everybody gets an equal vote. They may pay a little bit more into the pot though, because it's done on scale. But it actually finances a secretary and someone who collects the numbers and someone who, and then the rest of it is voluntary, where they have a marketing group, a training group, a technology group, and they have different groups that kind of meet on a regular basis too.
I think also it's not just energy, it's the source of energy, is the carbon. As the climate emergency starts to emerge even more and is more in the light of the people in the buildings, I think there's more concern about that as to what is the carbon thrown in the air, not just the energy used. So we're seeing a lot of that, especially in the province we're involved in. Mark?
Yes.
I think he's waving off camera.
Oh, he's waving off camera.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I thought he had a comment on that. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sort of wondering what the focus of that kind of effort is. It around standardization of the information that we and sort of an understanding of it? Is it an education thing? Is it a financial levers? Is it, or is it all of the above? To
But we're no
actually change?
longer talking energy in Canada. It's mostly how many tons of carbon are thrown into the air.
Well, and I think that's a good point, Ken, because I think if we're ever to gain traction, it can't be one thing. It has to be multiple things. So energy obviously is one, carbonization could be whatever those things are, because again, put yourself as an owner of a building is we've got to create that value, that incentive for them to get off their rear ends and do something like that about this. And what energy is not going to do it alone, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess we're all trying to sort of think, and so what is it if it's not energy?
So we had an hour's discussion and we never really came up with the enabler.
We'll do that next Monday, huh?
There you go.
Yeah.
Going back to, we've had quite interesting conversation here, going back to technology versus business. So what we're really talking about, what we talked about is really barriers that are more business related than technology, right?
I think we can all agree to that. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I heard, my takeaway from all this is that standards bodies that are not related to the government are not going to do it, because we've seen them come and go and they haven't driven consistent success. So I go back to Jim's initial thought, which is regulation, government regulation, particularly at the federal level, that was establish a standard would be a powerful enabler. Anybody disagree with that? Or
No, I think you're right there. And, think about, and everybody's suspicious of the government and stuff, but look at how a lot of the building codes, ASHRAE does the research. They say, here's the right way to do it. And it ends up in building codes, right? It wasn't, that's regulation. It isn't, Congress makes up some energy thing. But that initiative isn't happening for the intelligent operation of buildings. I don't even call them intelligent buildings, right? We all know you can put an efficient chiller and run it terribly. Yeah, great. I designed it as it should have been. Yeah, you're just running it wrong. How we got to get through that?
So we're at the top of the hour, and maybe I can ask our Zen master Bill here to sort of comment on how do you turn this conversation into changing the people's sort of mindset. And it looks like it's both our own internal mindsets within this industry and then influencing others either directly by way of building owners or through regulatory and other levers. There you go, put you on the spot.
You can put me on the spot. For me, that was an hour of masturbation. There was nothing there. So I think we should bring some more edge to this conversation next week, Anto.
Okay, so next week we're going to the edge. All right, so on that happy note, I think we'll bring this to
Good summary, Bill.
See you guys.
Thank you. YouTube will be out tomorrow, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye all.
Cheers.
Okay.
guys.
Bye-bye.